2 bombs, 1 week. Humanity learned how to destroy itself. This is the story of the first atomic blasts, Trinity, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki. In 1942, while Nazi Germany dominated Europe, the United States launched the most secretive project in history, the Manhattan Project. At Los Alamos, scientists worked day and night to create a weapon beyond imagination, the atomic bomb. July 16, 1945. In the desolate expanse of the New Mexico desert, a place ominously named Jornada del Muerto, the Journey of the Dead, a tense silence hangs in the pre-dawn chill. For years, under a veil of unprecedented secrecy, the brightest minds in science had raced against time. Now, huddled in bunkers miles away, they held their breath, waiting to see if their theoretical monster would become a reality. Atop a 100-foot steel tower sat the fruit of their $2 billion gamble, the world's first atomic device. It was an implosion-type plutonium bomb, an intricate sphere of wires and high explosives designed to crush a core of plutonium into a critical mass. They called it, with a chillingly mundane nickname, the Gadget. It was a name that belied the terrifying power locked within its metallic shell, a power that promised to end a world war and begin a new, more terrifying age. The test, codenamed Trinity, had been delayed by thunderstorms, the weather itself seeming to protest what was about to happen. But at 5:29 a.m., the final countdown reached 0. In an instant, the device detonated with an explosive force of 21,000 tons of TNT. A flash of light, brighter than 1,000 suns, vaporized the steel tower and turned the desert sand beneath it into glass. Night was obliterated, replaced by a blinding, artificial day. A man-made sun ignited the sky, visible from hundreds of miles away. The heat was felt 10 miles from ground zero. As the initial flash subsided, a terrifyingly beautiful yet monstrous mushroom cloud began to boil and climb, reaching over 7 miles into the stratosphere. In the control bunker, a stunned silence was broken. Test director Kenneth Bainbridge turned to lead scientist J. Robert Oppenheimer and said, "Now we are all sons of bitches." Oppenheimer, for his part, recalled a line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Half a world away in Potsdam, Germany, President Harry S. Truman was locked in tense negotiations with Winston Churchill and Joseph Stalin over the shape of the post-war world. A coded message arrived, operated on this morning, diagnosis not yet complete, but results seem satisfactory and already exceed expectations. The baby was born. The test was a success. For Truman, this was the ultimate leverage, an ace in the hole that would change the entire dynamic of the conference. Armed with this new, terrible knowledge, Truman casually approached Stalin. He mentioned that the United States had developed a new weapon of unusual destructive force. Stalin, who already knew of the Manhattan Project through his spies, showed little interest, simply saying he was glad to hear it and hoped they would make good use of it against the Japanese. But the die was cast. The atomic age had begun not with a public announcement but in a quiet, chilling exchange between two world leaders. The balance of global power had been irrevocably altered, setting the stage for the nuclear standoff that would define the next half-century. The war in the Pacific was about to enter its final, devastating chapter, and the world would never be the same. The Allies demanded Japan's unconditional surrender, warning of prompt and utter destruction. Japan's leadership hesitated, their silence sealed their fate. The war in Europe was over, but in the Pacific, the Japanese Empire fought on with a ferocity that promised a bloody, protracted invasion. In the remote deserts of New Mexico, a secret weapon, the culmination of the monumental Manhattan Project, had proven its terrifying power. Now the fate of that power rested on a small island in the Marianas. On Tinian Island, the world's largest airfield, the B-29 superfortress named Enola Gay stood poised under the harsh glare of floodlights. Its pilot, Colonel Paul Tibbets, had briefed his crew on a mission unlike any other in the history of warfare. In the pre-dawn hours of August 6, 1945, at precisely 2:45 a.m., the heavily laden bomber lumbered into the night sky. The 6-hour flight to Japan had begun. Secured in its bomb bay was a weapon codenamed Little Boy. It was not a conventional explosive. This was a gun-type fission weapon, containing 64 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. The journey was tense. To prevent a catastrophic accident on takeoff, the bomb was armed mid-flight by Navy Captain William Deke Parsons, a perilous task performed in the cramped confines of the bomber as it flew over the vast, dark Pacific. Hours later, as the Enola Gay approached its primary target, the city of Hiroshima was just beginning its day. A major industrial and military hub, it had so far been spared the large-scale firebombing raids that had devastated other Japanese cities. An earlier all-clear siren, triggered by a lone American weather plane, had given its 300,000 residents a false sense of security. Children were on their way to school, and workers were heading to factories, unaware that their world was about to be unmade. At 8:15 a.m., from an altitude of over 31,000 feet, the bomb bay doors of the Enola Gay opened. Little Boy fell for 43 seconds. Then, 600 meters above the city center, it detonated. For those on the ground, the first sensation was a silent, blinding flash of light. The Pika, a light brighter than 1,000 suns. It was followed almost instantly by a wave of thermal energy, a heat blast reaching thousands of degrees Celsius. In a fraction of a second, it vaporized people closest to the hypocenter, leaving only their shadows permanently etched onto stone and pavement as ghostly memorials. Then came the dawn, the deafening roar of the shockwave expanding outwards at supersonic speed, flattening nearly everything within a 1-mile radius. Over 90% of the city's buildings were demolished or severely damaged. The sky, once clear, was now filled with a colossal, churning mushroom cloud, a terrifying spectacle of pinks, purples, and grays that rose miles into the stratosphere, blotting out the sun. Within seconds, an estimated 80,000 people were killed. But the horror was far from over. Survivors, horrifically burned and irradiated, moved in silent days processions, what became known as the ant walking lines, towards the city's rivers, desperate for water. Soon after, a viscous, radioactive black rain began to fall, poisoning the very water they sought and condemning thousands more to a slow, agonizing death from radiation sickness in the days and weeks that followed. Hiroshima was not just damaged, it was annihilated. A bustling city was reduced to a barren, radioactive wasteland, its people incinerated, crushed, or poisoned. The world had entered the nuclear age. This single act, authorized by a single decision, brought the war to a swifter conclusion, but at an unimaginable human cost. Was it a necessary evil to prevent an even bloodier invasion, or a line that should never have been crossed? The debate continues to this day. Comment your thoughts below. 3 days later, a second B-29 Boxcar carried the plutonium bomb Fat Man. Clouds covered the primary target, forcing a last-minute diversion to Nagasaki. At 11:02 a.m., Fat Man detonated with a yield of 21 kilotons. Entire neighborhoods vanished, tens of thousands more lives lost. That same night, the Soviet Union invaded Manchuria. With dual catastrophes and no hope left, Emperor Hirohito broke Japan's silence.
We must endure the unendurable.
On August 15th, Japan surrendered unconditionally. The immediate devastation was absolute, but the true cost of Hiroshima and Nagasaki would only reveal itself over time. By the end of 1945, the death toll had climbed past 200,000 people from the two cities. In the weeks and months that followed, thousands more succumbed to horrific burns, untreatable injuries, and a mysterious, terrifying illness, radiation sickness, a new kind of suffering unleashed upon the world. For the survivors, the hibakusha, the physical and psychological scars would last a lifetime. They faced not only their own trauma and long-term health problems, but also social discrimination born from fear. Their stories became a harrowing testament to the human cost of nuclear weapons. The mushroom clouds over Japan did more than end a war. They cast a long, dark shadow over the future of humanity. For the first time, mankind had unleashed the power to annihilate itself. This single horrifying fact defined the next half-century, plunging the world into the Cold War. A tense standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union fueled a terrifying arms race. Driven by fear, both sides built arsenals of unimaginable destructive force, including hydrogen bombs 1,000 times more powerful than those used on Japan. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, became the grim logic of the era. Any nuclear attack would be met with a devastating counterattack, ensuring the end of civilization. Nearly 80 years later, the world still lives under the shadow of those two bombs. The Cold War may be over, but the threat has not vanished. The nuclear club has expanded, with several nations now possessing these ultimate weapons. Tensions simmer in global hotspots, and the rhetoric of nuclear threat has re-entered political discourse. We have come perilously close to the brink before, most famously during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the world held its breath on the edge of apocalypse. The existence of thousands of nuclear warheads on high alert is a constant, chilling reminder that the power unleashed in 1945 has not been contained. Yet, from the epicenter of that destruction, a powerful message of hope emerged. The cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were rebuilt, not as monuments to war, but as beacons for peace. Their memorials and museums serve as a solemn promise to future generations. The voices of the Hibakusha have been central to this legacy, tirelessly sharing their experiences to ensure the world never forgets. Their advocacy has fueled global movements for disarmament. The hope remains that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were the first and the last. What do you think? Did the atomic bomb save lives by ending the war, or open the door to endless destruction? Share your thoughts below, and if this story gripped you, like and share to keep history alive.